AOC now claims a surge of disillusioned MAGA voters are turning away from Trump, leaving him behind, and planning to rally behind Democrats, fully aligned with the DNC by the 2028 election. Karoline Leavitt flatly shuts it down, saying AOC is entirely off base, and fires back with what may be one of the sharpest clapbacks you'll see all year. That was AOC's message when she took to social media. In her telling, Trump supporters rally behind him for one basic reason. They sit glued to Fox News all day, absorb talking points, and never bother to think for themselves. In her version of events, it couldn't possibly be about financial strain under Biden, skyrocketing grocery bills, punishing gas prices, or rent that's become completely unaffordable. No, none of that mattered. She also brushed aside the idea that voters were pushed toward Trump by the wave of woke policies coming out of the Biden administration, policies many Americans see as detached from everyday reality. To AOC, it's all just media-driven brainwashing, pure and simple. But that smug explanation didn't go unanswered. Karoline Leavitt heard AOC comments and had no intention of letting them slide. What followed was a sharp rebuttal that flipped AOC's narrative on its head and laid bare the arrogance behind it. And that point is difficult to argue against. The DNC has appeared rattled ever since Trump announced his run for president once again. From that moment on, one hurried decision followed another, with any clear strategy giving way to visible confusion. It helps explain the constant accusations aimed at him, the high-profile investigations, and the courtroom dramas that promised bombshell revelations, but ultimately delivered very little. It sheds light on the Russia collusion narrative that dominated headlines for years, a storyline many Republicans argue never lived up to Democratic claims. It also accounts for the steady barrage of insults and dismissive labels, as if ridicule could stand in for a persuasive case. And yet, despite the scandals, the trials, and the media firestorms, nothing ever seems to stick. Time and again, the attacks failed to splinter Trump's base or slow his momentum. If anything, they appear to have strengthened his support and exposed just how unsettled his critics truly are. Karoline Leavitt takes direct aim at Democratic leaders, accusing them of losing touch with their own base. She argues the party has drifted so far left that even long-established figures like Chuck Schumer now appear out of step with the activists they once led. In her view, the most extreme factions have seized control. Instead of leadership setting priorities, it's the loudest and most radical voices online and in the streets calling the shots. Leavitt claims Democratic officials are being sidelined in real time for failing to meet ever-shifting standards of wokeness. One poorly phrased comment or hint of moderation, and they're instantly branded sellouts or traitors. To her, this internal warfare shows a party eating itself alive, obsessed with purity tests rather than governing. And as Democrats turn on one another, Leavitt says voters are noticing, with many quietly pulling away from a party that no longer seems clear on what it stands for. Karoline steps in with surgical precision, dismantling AOC claim that MAGA voters secretly regret supporting Donald Trump. She doesn't just brush it aside, she demands receipts, real names, solid numbers, and hard evidence, none of which she says ever appear. Instead of relying on vague anecdotes or social media fantasies, Karoline lays out exactly why millions of Americans backed Trump in the first place. It wasn't accidental. It was a reaction of backlash against aggressive woke agendas pushed by the DNC that left everyday voters frustrated and alienated. Many Americans opposed men competing in women's sports, questioned medical transitions for minors, and grew uneasy with the party drift toward open socialism. Karoline makes it clear that dismissing those concerns won't make them disappear. It only drives more voters away. And if Democrats stay on that course, she warns, the political consequences could be severe. Yes, Leavitt gets it exactly right, and this is the reality Democrats still refuse to face. Trump didn't win by chasing Twitter applause or elite approval. He spoke directly to middle America, to swing voters, to people who felt ignored, talked down to, and financially squeezed from every direction. He tapped into working-class frustration, addressing worries about jobs, prices, safety, and stability in language people actually recognized. At the same time, Kamala Harris and the DNC focused almost entirely on coastal elites, corporate donors, and the loudest woke voices online. Instead of prioritizing kitchen table issues, voters were met with lectures, labels, and moral posturing. That disconnect mattered. When everyday Americans felt brushed off or ridiculed, Trump made them feel heard even if they didn't agree with him on everything. In the end, elections aren't won through virtue signaling or polished talking points. They're won by connecting with real people living real lives. That connection is where Trump succeeded and where the DNC fell short. Karoline Leavitt also directs her criticism at Gavin Newsom, targeting what she calls outright political hypocrisy. She blasts Newsom for constantly preaching about saving the planet while presiding over one of the priciest energy markets in the country. Leavitt argues it easy to deliver climate lectures from a podium while everyday families struggle under crushing electricity and gas bills just to keep their homes running. She claims Newsom's green agenda may look noble on paper, but it falls apart in practice, especially for working-class Californians who can't afford solar panels, electric vehicles, or other premium alternatives. Rather than making life greener, she contends these policies are making it more expensive and difficult to live. Leavitt frames it as a classic example of elite disconnect, politicians pushing feel-good environmental ideals while ordinary people bear the financial burden. In her view, California aren't turning away from environmental responsibility, they're rejecting leaders who put ideology above affordability and common sense. Karoline is absolutely right, and the evidence is impossible to overlook. Families and businesses are leaving California in rising numbers, frustrated by crushing taxes, endless red tape, and suffocating bureaucracy. For small business owners, every day is an uphill battle. Permits, compliance fees, and towering tax bills pile up until running a business barely makes sense. Meanwhile, Newsom, in Karoline's view, appears unconcerned. Instead of easing the pressure or reconsidering policy, he doubles down, tightening the squeeze on businesses under the banner of ambitious goals and political optics. The result is predictable. Companies move to states with lower taxes, fewer obstacles, and friendlier business climates. Karoline calls it a failure of leadership, plain and simple. Jobs vanish, communities struggle, and the tax base shrinks, yet California leaders act perpetually shocked by consequences anyone could have foreseen. At some point, she insists, denial stops being leadership and starts looking a lot like indifference. Yes, Karoline has essentially voiced what millions of Californians are already feeling. Gavin Newsom needs to stop chasing headlines and start addressing the issues that actually affect the people in his state. That means taking the crushing cost of living seriously. Families shouldn't have to make impossible choices every month just to survive. It means trimming the bloated bureaucracy that slows progress, inflates expenses, and strangles small businesses before they can thrive. It means investing in reliable energy production instead of pushing policies that make power more expensive and less dependable. And most importantly, it means easing the tax burden that continues to push residents and employers out of California. Karoline's point is clear. Leadership isn't about grandstanding or national optics. It's about making life more affordable and sustainable for everyday people. Until Newsom realigns his priorities around those fundamentals, the exodus will continue, and Californians will keep paying the price for political stubbornness. Step back, and the pattern is unmistakable. Democrats like AOC and Newsom keep offering excuses, slogans, and narratives while voters demand real results. Karoline Leavitt cuts through the noise. People didn't flock to Trump because of Fox News or misinformation, they did it because their lives became harder, pricier, and less secure. The DNC obsession with woke purity tests, rising taxes, and ideological crusades has left working Americans behind. Instead of listening, party leaders double down and act surprised when voters walk away. Until Democrats confront the real reasons people are frustrated, no amount of spin will stop the political backlash that's already underway. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.